What did the football coach say to the broken vending machine? That is the setup for the dad joke of the week. This is 4,000 Weeks, the weekly audio dispatch from 4kweeks.com. It is week 28 of the year 2025. We're already 2 weeks past the halfway point of the year. Oh my goodness. Week 28. It's hard to even believe that that's how far we have gone. We just celebrated the independence of the United States of America the other day. The mortars were exploding and actually still are exploding in my neighborhood. Our dogs hate the fireworks. Actually, that's not totally true. We have 3 dogs. One dog is 100% indifferent to the fireworks. Another dog does not love them, wants to sleep next to our bed when they are going off, but isn't actively freaking out. And then we have another dog that needs as many of the anti-anxiety pills as she can have. Otherwise, she's trying to claw a hole in the sheetrock. I am personally, as a middle-aged man, ambivalent about fireworks anymore. I used to love them when I was a kid. Explosions can still be cool, even though I am an adult now. But since I care for people and beings who are not ambivalent about the fireworks, I guess that makes me also not ambivalent anymore. It's time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Are you done? Let's see. You're walking over there. You're walking over there. You're filling it out. And now you're done. Okay, I saw this poem. It's weird. It's weird that we celebrate the independence of the United States with fireworks that were made in China. That's just weird. There's a lot of weird things. Modern human life has gotten so convoluted that there's a lot of things that if you take them out of the context that they normally exist in, it's like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Fireworks are weird. They're explosives to celebrate the ending of a war and to celebrate, peace and independence and freedom. It's kind of weird. They can be fun. They're beautiful to watch. But if you think about it, it's weird. I mean, I know a lot of vets that have PTSD do not care for fireworks. And it seems like one of those things where it's easy to be like, oh, stop being a wussy, stop being a wimp, be a man, and I want to do what I want to do, right? I don't live in an HSA, right? Or not HSA, HOA, Homeowner Association? Yeah, HOA. Stop being the block mother or whatever. I read this poem, though, that I think really hit at how I feel about it these days. It's called No Explosions. And it is by this poet named Naomi Shihab Nye. And it goes like this. No explosions. To enjoy fireworks, you would have to have lived a different kind of life. And I think I'm sure, like, look, difference between masculinity and femininity, right? How do I want to say this? Lots of, let's do it. Whatever. Blah, 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 blah. It's just explosions. Da, 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 da. I think that it's only because we, people my age, have grown up in an era of such peace and tranquility in our tiny little corner of the world that we do not have traumatic memories associated with all of those explosions. And I think that's just important to remember, like, I want to do what I want to do, right? I don't want you telling me that you don't want me to do the things that I want to do. It makes perfect sense, right? We especially in the U.S. where, like, every person has their own little castle with their own little green space around it, or whatever it is, wherever you live, whatever that you being the master of your own domain is associated with in your little neighborhood of the United States. But much like freedom, kindness and empathy are always available to us as a choice. So the American spirit in me says that you cannot, under any circumstances, take away my freedom. Period. End of story. Sure, you can put me in handcuffs, you can shackle me, you can strip me of my possessions, you can contort my physical, corporeal being into all manner of painful and uncomfortable ways. But in every situation, no matter how uncomfortable or terrible or non-preferred it is, I still have that choice. And that is my freedom. It's right here. I always have access to that no matter what. If you're cutting my finger off right now, I still have a choice. It may be more difficult to access in some situations than others, but I still have it. And I think similarly, under any circumstance, in any situation, we can choose kindness and empathy over our immediate desires. It's a noble form of courage. And if you're a parent or a person who interacts with adolescents and younger children regularly, you don't have to be a parent, but a person who is around those age levels of humans enough, you know this. You know that you don't want to do the dishwasher tonight or clean the dishwasher, but you have these responsibilities to these people. And sometimes, often, you have to choose not your favorite thing because. And so, kindness and empathy are always a choice. And they are the choice of an educated intellectual elite. Meaning, if you make the choice for kindness and empathy, you are being educated and thoughtful and intellectual, and it makes you an elite. Okay. I would love it if you would subscribe to this podcast if you enjoy it, if you would send it to a friend. That would be super spectacular. There will be no ads on this podcast, and so you could just pay for it by subscribing, rating, review, whatever. Remarkable Weeks. Week 28 of the year 2021. Billionaire Richard Branson flew to the edge of space on his Virgin Galactic rocket, monetizing space tourism. Gosh, that was only 2021. Seems like it would have been a longer. I feel like Virgin Galactic has since gone belly up. Anyway, 2021, he was 3,703.71 weeks old, or 71.03 years. Richard Branson, interesting dude. All right, we are on to the quote of the week. The quote of the week is from Epictetus. Eli had a quote in here that I just wasn't feeling, and so I cracked open the book, The Art of Living, which I have right here, by Sharon LaBelle. It is a modern translation of Epictetus's Inquiry, and it is, I think, the best book in the world. I actually, on my birthday, I took 20 copies of it to basketball and gave them away to everyone that came. Because when you get to be my age, the gift is giving a gift. And it is the best book ever. And so here is the quote. Don't declare yourself to be a wise person or discuss your spiritual aspirations with people who don't appreciate them. Show your character and your commitment to personal nobility through your actions. Now, that's a pretty funny quote to put on a podcast where all I am doing is discussing my spiritual aspirations and trying to encourage you to adopt them or think about them. And I think it would be honest of me to say that this is really hard for me, because when I believe something or when I think something, I can become a prophet about it. Prophet in the words of like spreading the good news. I want to tell everyone, oh, wait, there's this book called The Art of Living. It's a translation of Epictetus, and it's the best book in the world, and you should read it. Stop everything and read it. Like, I can get really earnest about things like that. And I'm sure you can imagine that is how I get. And it's very easy for me to flip from an earnest concern with helping other people to learn and showing other people how awesome I am, right? Like the difference between showing and teaching and showing off is like a very, very fine line. And, we all admire people who make big, bold, loud changes in the world. People who are screaming their truth with a megaphone and we're nodding along saying, yes, absolutely. We all admire that person. But the person who lives a quiet life of integrity doesn't often get that many awards or accolades. And yet I'm sure that we would all choose to live in a country where everyone was showing their commitment to personal nobility through their actions and their actions alone, right? That's like a utopian future in sci-fi where everyone's just living their normal, awesome life full of integrity and respect and wisdom and nobility in their every action as opposed to in their words. And I think, all of this personal development stuff is aspirational. Everything we're doing here is trying to get from level 1 to level 1.1 to level 1.2 all the time. And we will never arrive at the promised land of perfect personal character, because the goalposts move, the finish line moves. You will always be working towards this success in this realm your entire life. And almost no one will notice that you have made a commitment to your own personal nobility if you're just doing it for its own sake. But you will. And doing so will make your life better. And it will make the lives of all of the people who won't actually appreciate it better too. And so it's the catch 22. It's the pot and the kettle. I am literally sitting here telling you not to advertise your virtue, but just to do it for its own sake. Meanwhile, advertising my virtue not only for its own sake. So maybe I'm full of crap, but I think we all can push towards that, doing it because it is right, and damn the torpedoes. Okay, what I consumed this week. I hope that you have smart friends who send you thoughtful articles. And my good friend John G., who proofreads this email and this newsletter every week, sent me this article. It's titled, "What If This Is It?" And I printed it out so I could have my kids read it. It's just a blog post. And that's about as high a praise as I can give a thing. And so you need to go to the email and click on the link and read that essay. It's very good. It relates exactly to the kind of stuff we talk about in this email. And I really, really liked it. Let's see, what's next? Oh, I had a pretty big itch this last week, and I decided to scratch it. And the itch, gosh, that's a weird metaphor, related to just kind of an understanding of modernism, postmodernism, and metamodernism. And this, I was led here by all of the David Foster Wallace stuff that I've been consuming, because he's the first person who I've heard articulate like a thoughtful and reasoned critique of postmodernism that I really gelled with. You know, what's his name? What's the guy, the Joe Rogan-y guy? Jordan Peterson. That's his name, Jordan Peterson. He, would tell you that postmodernism is ruining the world and you should be a Christian or something. I don't, all sorts of like stuff associated with it. And the David Foster Wallace stuff is just more like hey, I mean, maybe things do matter. Maybe not. Maybe everything isn't sarcasm and a joke, and maybe there is meaning in the world. And so it really made me think, that plus my thinking about the cycles of things that are happening all the time, made me think like, well, what's next? And so I did some Googling and I found out that there's a few other things, but one of the, in the pole position for what is the next cultural zeitgeist, kind of specifically with art and creativity, right, is metamodernism. And so I was like, what the heck is this? And so I listened to a whole bunch, probably 7 or 8 podcasts about modernism, postmodernism, and metamodernism. There's this podcast called Deep Talks, and this guy, super interesting. He's a theologian. He's a Christian, and it's interesting in that regard. I always like listening to people who have different faith beliefs than I do. I am not a Christian in that way. I mean, I'm a Christian in the way that I was raised in this country, but it's not my religion. Anyway, it's nice to hear people like that talk things through in a thoughtful way. Metamodernism Part 1, 2, and 3 different podcasts, and then also one called What is Metamodernism? Super interesting discussion, mostly through the lens of culture and TV shows and movies and stuff, which is a really good way to kind of understand what stories we are telling ourselves in the background is what actual stories we are trying to tell each other in the foreground. Really helps think things through. And then also a podcast called Stuff You Should Know, Postmodernism. And then the last one is Art is Dangerous, the Nazi Degenerate Art Exhibition that, basically the Nazis were against modern art, right? The only art that was allowed was very traditional, kind of, frankly, the kind of sculpture that I still make, traditional art where it's more craft as opposed to cultural discussion in the art. And the Nazi Degenerate Art Exhibition is when they basically pulled all of the modernists out and shamed them, made this art exhibit specifically for the purpose of the getting the citizenry out to laugh at it and to talk about how terrible it was. It's interesting to look to the past when someone was ridiculing the culture in order to push their political agenda. And especially since I'm an artist, it's a good way for me to hear about things so that I can kind of place myself where I feel like I should be philosophically. But they're all really interesting podcasts. And if you want to think and hear people think and think more about what is the vibe, what do we believe in, what do we not believe in, it's a very good place to start with those podcasts. That is what I am consuming this week. Now we are on to what I am thinking about this week. This week on Monday morning, was it Monday morning? Yes, it was Monday morning. I had to take my mom to an appointment, and it made me think that the experience, this is the title that I wrote for this, just scratched it out and then I left it, is The Hell of Distraction. And so let's see where to start. Epictetus, again, I'm on an Epictetus kick this week. Epictetus said, and I quote, "Most of what passes for legitimate entertainment is inferior or foolish and only caters to or exploits people's weaknesses. Avoid being one of the mob who indulges in such pastimes. Your life is too short and you have important things to do. Be discriminating about what images and ideas you permit into your mind. If you yourself don't choose what thoughts and images you expose yourself to, someone else will, and their motives may not be the highest. It is the easiest thing in the world to slide imperceptibly into vulgarity, but there's no need for that to happen if you determine not to waste your time and attention on mindless pap." So that's Epictetus. I went searching for that quote, which I knew existed after this experience. And I was writing this all from a hospital waiting room. Just being a good son, nothing's wrong. I was just doing my job as a good son to my mother. Hospital waiting rooms are dens of overwhelming, vulgar distraction. And I've had the experience of being in them a decent amount in the last few years just because of the age of my folks, right? And they always seem to be catering to the loudest, least common denominator. It's as if since one person out of 100 people might enjoy a TV in every corner of the room screaming the worst kinds of things that have happened in the world over and over and over and over again, then everyone must suffer it. It is a side commentary about what hospitals, and I've had this discussion before on this podcast and in this newsletter. They spend so much time making sure they are giving good care and so little time considering all of the amount. You spend more time in the waiting room than you do with the doctor. Why aren't they considering that environment? It is insane to me that they let this kind of thing happen. And it is the truth in every waiting room I have ever been to, with almost zero exception. So blaring in my left ear was a TV spewing a string of awful news about murder and bad weather, and then the occasionally totally useless feel-good story about something that happened in the community that isn't actually terrible. And it was so loud that it was hard for me to even focus on the next word with my computer in front of me. There was actually a commercial for some reality TV show where everyone is like intentionally stabbing each other in the back because it makes good reality TV. And it was narrated, the commercial was narrated in a loud whisper, like they were talking like this in the commercial, on volume 75. And the point of it was to play on the cheap drama of these quote unquote characters betraying each other's secrets, and then to ask you, what secrets are you going to share over the water cooler on Monday? I cannot even tell you how much of a cancer that is in your own brain. It is the most disgusting, base, and vile ploy to attract human attention that I could possibly imagine. The only thing worse would be if, like, we were watching people be beheaded on TV, which, maybe that's a future, right? It's like Idiocracy. the TV show that's popular in Idiocracy, and I hope you know what movie I'm talking about. It's called Ow My Balls, and it's just people getting kicked in the balls, and that's what entertainment is 100 years from now. It is all horrifyingly basic and a collective character cancer on all of us. There were 13 people in the waiting room, and there were 18 seats, so we were in pretty close confines. Of the 13 people sitting there, and I was one of those 13, 10 were staring at their phones and had been since I walked into the waiting room 20 minutes previously. So 20 uninterrupted minutes staring at their phones. The only time anyone looked up was when the nurse would come out to the door to call the next person. And the visual junk food that those people were consuming on their phones was likely a much, much more subtle form of mind-numbing propaganda than the stuff that was on the TV, right? The stuff on the TV, they don't get to choose their audience. And so they have to beat them over the head with a 2x4. But on your phone, on social media, they track you so much. There's so much tracking that they actually know exactly who the audience is. And so they don't have to be quite so 2x4 effect. They can get in there way more subtly and really attack your weaknesses. And it just made me wonder. So all of that is the lead up to this question. Why are we so afraid of being alone with our thoughts? And why is it so easy for phones and apps and social media and loud blaring news programs following the if it bleeds, it leads rule to distract us? Why are we drawn to the porch light of contrived drama and cheap conflict? Why are we so ready to be distracted? Does life hurt so much? Is life so painful that we just need to be distracted with mindless pap for a minute? And I think it's just one more example of the pain, of the truth of our mortality. And, pain is a sensation, it's a signal, it's information. And I have found in my own life that turning towards the pain and not turning away from it is a solution for me to strengthen my ability to deal with it in all manner of stupid ways. And this is stupid. My kids laugh at me about this, right? But when I get blood drawn, I wasn't bothered by needles, but nobody really likes getting blood drawn or getting a shot, right? And I thought, well, that's weird. I don't want to be weak in that way. And so I watch. If you're going to stick a needle in me, I'm looking at it. If you're going to take it, and that's easy, actually. Looking at the point where you get a flu shot is easy. It just takes a second. The AP level of that is when you get blood drawn for a physical, watch them stick the needle in and watch the life leave your body. And the pain there is mostly psychological. It's mostly the discomfort of that whole situation, not the actual needle sticking in. And I just want to offer that turning towards this existential pain, acknowledging the truth of your whole mortality here, as opposed to ignoring it, is the path. This is the way. We are going to die. And it is hard and maybe even impossible to make that make sense. And even though we are going to die, most of us still can't seem to find a way to do much of meaning with our next minute. And so that's painful. When you're like, I'm going to die, I'm mortal. This minute is fleeting. I'm never going to get it back. And then you also cannot do anything meaningful with the next minute because meaning takes time and work and effort. And this second might not be meaningful, but all of these seconds added together might be meaningful. It's just so much easier sometimes to try to take the easy dopamine hits that, modern data-driven capitalism wants to offer you and is good at offering you. I mean, I don't know if you've ever allowed yourself, I'm sure you have, to just scroll a feed that knows stuff about you. They are pretty dang good about giving you positive feedback so that you keep doing it. What's not to love about that except the fact that it's death. It is literally death. It's not life. And we are so evolutionarily optimized for short-term thinking that it is very, very, very hard to overcome that urge to seek out the distraction. Because all important work is hard and painful. I don't know of a single bit of important work, important world building, peace bringing, culture enlightening work that exists that isn't hard. Sure, there are moments of joy in that, but in order to create the moments of joy, you have to spend hours of work that is rewarding, but not necessarily dopamine inspiring, dopamine delivering. And yet it is the most important work. You cannot save the world from it, unfortunately. You can't even really save your own children from it. This is a sadness that I have, that we have been very measured in our allowance of technology, and yet we haven't forsworn it completely from our home. And I think my kids would describe me as strict, describe us, my wife and I, as strict, even though that's flabbergasting to me, because it doesn't, I feel like we're very permissive, but because we don't allow unfettered access to the fire hose of the internet, that makes us strict parents compared to a lot of their other friends, which is going to be interesting to see what it does. But I don't think we cannot save our children from the world as it exists. You can't save the world from it. You can't save even people who you oversee from it, but you can save yourself. And that is a start. And I think actually the only important parts of parenting are the examples that you set as opposed to the words that you say. And so maybe by saving yourself from it, you'll be putting your own oxygen mask on first, and you will be showing other people how to grab an oxygen mask. Maybe, I don't know. This has been it started with the screaming TV in the waiting room, and that's a whole separate issue, why they allow that. But the whole point is, distraction is a hell, even if it seems like a moment-to-moment paradise. And I'll stand by that to the end of my grave, that like doing the hard work, while harder in the minute, is actually the living, and everything else is the dying. That's the soapbox for this week. I'm not going to try to sum it up any better than that. Dad joke of the week. What did the football coach say to the broken vending machine? What did the football coach say to the broken vending machine? Give me my quarterback. I don't know about you. I have told you all, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of dad jokes. And yet when I try to think of one on the spot, I'm like, my brain's just like, there's nothing in there. What is it about a dad joke? For some of us, that's difficult to hold in your brain. Okay. If you think you can do better, send me a dad joke. My good friend, Tessa, sent me a dad joke the other day, but it was not in the easy setup and punchline. It was a little more involved, and so I didn't include it, but it was a good one. Hold on. What did the ancient Greek say? What did the ancient Greek tailor say to the Greek who brought in his trousers to be mended? Euripides? And then the guy who brought in the trousers says, Eumenides? It's a fairly cerebral joke. Anyway, have a wonderful week. Remember, your freedom, your empathy, and your kindness are always all available to you as a choice. And I don't want you to get into the shoulds. I should be feeling free. I should exercise my freedom. I should be empathetic. No, you're shoulding all over yourself. Just know, in any moment, you can choose to be free, to be kind, to be empathetic. That's a choice that's always available to you. And sorry, I'm going to go on a little more longer. I want to acknowledge the fact that emotions have inertia, right? So opposite in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted on by something else, right? And so when you're pissed off, that emotion has inertia. You're carrying it along with you down a road. It's hard to stomp on the brakes, stop it on a dime, and choose kindness. So recognize that. That's not a human failing. That's just kind of part of the inhabiting of that emotion. But once you know that you have that choice, then you can just choose it. And then when you choose it, then things get better. So that's what I got. Have a great week.